Last Saturday night, I flew back into Melbourne from Tokyo after a week in Japan on Qantas. It was an A330 wide-body jet, business class and economy only, no first, no premium economy. I can tell you the plane was packed. There was not one spare seat in business class or in economy. I mean, look, it was the end of school holidays. In some states, the Women's World Cup was about to start, but I was absolutely shocked at how busy the flight was. I was then absolutely shocked about how packed the arrival hall was in Melbourne. But I'm more shocked about the price of airfares. Obviously, the airlines are not back to pre-COVID capacity. So here's a question. How come the federal government has denied an application from one of the big three Middle Eastern airlines, Qatar, to increase their number of flights into Australia by 20 a week? Now, it makes no sense to me. On top of that Japan trip, I booked a trip to Europe in mid-September, and the airline costs, the airfare costs, are eye-watering. So why is Canberra denying permission for an airline to add more seats, more competition and lower fares? Someone who knows more about this than just about anyone in the country is Flight Centre creator and boss Graham Turner. Graham, great to catch up with you again. The decision's puzzling enough, but the fact that we can't get an answer as to why they said to Qatar, no, you can't have those slots. Is it airport capacity? What is it?
No, it's certainly not airport capacity. If you talk to the airport CEOs, they are looking for more traffic into them. It's really about the airlines, particularly the airlines that are influential in Australia, and obviously Qantas is the most influential, not wanting more capacity to come into Australia. It's running internationally. It's running at about 80-85% at the moment. But the demand's high, and obviously the airlines, and you don't necessarily blame them for this, want to keep the air prices up, and because Qantas is making profits that it's never made before. So you can't blame the airline for this. You can certainly blame the government because Qatar is one of the top airlines in the world. It already flies into Australia. It's got quite a few flights already, but these extra 21 flights a week they applied for was rejected out of hand by the minister, and no reason was given, as you said before.
I'd like a reason. I'd like an answer. We might chase that next week. But my experience last week, I mean, there was a couple of Chinese airlines arrived in at the same time as I was on Sunday morning, a couple of flights in from the United States, less so from Europe. Is there one sector of the industry that has less capacity than others? Is it Australia to Europe and back?
Yeah, certainly Australia to Europe is the really tough one. That's why the airlines like the Middle Eastern airlines are very important as part of this capacity. And, it's not only people like us travelling overseas that are having high prices we're having to pay. It's tourists are not coming back into Australia at the same level as they were before because prices are just too high and capacity is not there to cater for our tourists. So it's not only us who are suffering, it's tourism operators in Australia who are just not getting the traffic into Australia. And also, when you have these very high prices at an economy level, it's people visiting friends and relations overseas that really struggle. If you've got close relatives, particularly in Europe, it's very expensive to go and visit them. And these are not rich people. Often they're the lower income part of the market. So it is very strange and very unusual as to why the Labor Party, the Albanese government, is actually is putting the can on this. And it'd be great to hear what their rationale is. It makes no sense to me anyway.
And obviously, just finally, Graham, Flight Centre tracks numbers. I mean, that plane, as I mentioned, out of Tokyo back to Melbourne on Saturday night was jam-packed. Are you seeing really strong demand despite the level of the fares?
The demand's pretty strong, but you've got to remember there's just not the capacity. So, and there was nearly 2 years when people couldn't travel. So you probably know there's a lot of people trying to get to Europe now to travel around Europe. So it's we're pretty much back to pre-COVID sales numbers, but particularly in leisure, we don't have the actual seat numbers yet. And that's because of the lack of capacity. And we desperately need more capacity in Australia because it does two things. It satisfies demand, and it also brings down airfares. And obviously, the major carriers coming to Australia don't particularly want that. And you can't necessarily blame them. This is a government issue. They've got to come to the party here.
We'll see if we can get some answers. Flight Centre's Graham Turner, always great to catch up with you. Thank you very much, mate.